Snow fell thick outside the North Crown Grand Hotel lobby, coating the marble steps in white. Inside, cold air rushed in each time the revolving door opened. A man in a janitor's uniform stood silent, mop in hand, shoes wet from melted snow. When the CEO's cold voice cut through the air, "Janitors don't speak here," the entire lobby fell silent. No one expected what came next. The man bowed his head and answered in perfect Japanese. Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside, everything had frozen. The morning shift started at 4:30. Ethan Cole had been awake since 3. He moved through the North Crown Grand Hotel lobby with practiced efficiency, his mop leaving clean arcs across the marble floor. The chandelier above threw fractured light across wet stone. Outside, snow fell in thick curtains, muffling the city beyond the glass walls. Ethan was 42. His back hurt. His hands were cracked from chemicals. He'd been doing this for 3 years. The hotel was the kind of place where people paid more for one night than Ethan earned in a week. Leather couches, gold fixtures, staff who wore black suits and moved like shadows, guests who looked through him as if he were furniture. He preferred it that way. Just stay invisible, he told himself, pushing the mop bucket toward the elevator bank. Just keep Lily fed, his daughter. 12 years old, smart enough to notice when he came home exhausted, smart enough not to mention it. The lobby began filling with early risers, business travelers checking out, a few insomniacs from the bar upstairs. Ethan worked around them, shoulders hunched, eyes down, the posture of someone who'd learned not to be seen. His shift supervisor, Derek, appeared near the concierge desk. Young, ambitious, the kind who wore his name tag like a medal. "Cole. Third-floor hallway needs attention." Guest complained about a stain. Ethan nodded. Didn't speak. Derek didn't expect him to. The morning stretched on. Ethan's knees ached. The wet mop grew heavier. Outside, the snow kept falling, and commuters hunched against the wind, their breath visible in the gray air. At 7:15, Ethan was back in the lobby, wiping down the check-in counter while the morning staff arrived. Receptionists in crisp uniforms, the breakfast manager, the concierge who spoke 4 languages and treated Ethan like wallpaper. He'd learned their rhythms. When to move, where to stand, how to be useful without being noticed. It hadn't always been this way. Once, Ethan had stood in front of university classrooms, teaching linguistics. Once, he'd lived in Kyoto for 2 years, researching regional dialects. Once, he'd been married to a woman who laughed at his terrible attempts to master the tea ceremony. Sarah had died when Lily was 9. Cancer, fast and merciless. Ethan had tried to keep teaching, tried to manage academic deadlines and single parenthood and the crushing weight of grief. But university schedules didn't bend for grieving fathers. Research grants didn't wait for personal tragedy. So, he'd walked away, found work that let him be home when Lily needed him, work that asked nothing of his mind and everything of his body. "Just stay invisible," he whispered again, watching his reflection waver in the polished marble. The hotel didn't care about his past. It paid him enough to keep the lights on and food in the refrigerator. That was enough. It had to be. Ethan pushed his cart toward the storage room, his shoes squeaking softly on the wet floor. Through the lobby windows, the snow fell heavier now, transforming the city into something clean and temporary. He wondered if Lily had remembered her lunch money, if she'd dressed warm enough, if she still hated the way other kids looked at her when she mentioned her mother. The storage room smelled like bleach and old mops. Ethan restocked his cart methodically, his hands moving on autopilot. Around him, the hotel hummed with expensive efficiency. He checked his watch. 7:45. Another 9 hours until his shift ended. Another 9 hours of being invisible. Outside, the snow kept falling. She arrived just after 8. Ethan was polishing the brass handrail near the main entrance when he noticed her. A woman in a dark wool coat, snow clinging to her shoulders. She moved with careful precision, her posture formal, controlled. At the reception desk, she spoke quietly. Ethan couldn't hear the words, but he recognized the rhythm. Japanese. The receptionist, Brittany, young and usually confident, smiled blankly. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Could you repeat that?" The woman tried again, slower this time. Her English carried a heavy accent. "Reservation." "Takahashi Aiko." Brittany's smile tightened. She typed rapidly, staring at her screen with increasing frustration. "I'm not seeing. Could you spell that?" "Taka." No, the first name." The woman paused. Around them, the lobby continued its morning routine. Guests checking out, luggage carts rolling past, the soft ping of elevator bells. Ethan should have moved on, should have returned to his work. But something in the woman's posture held him not fear, but a kind of patient resignation. The look of someone accustomed to not being understood. "Ma'am, I really need you to speak clearly," Brittany said. Another receptionist, Marcus, leaned over. "What's the problem?" "Language barrier. I can't verify her reservation." The woman, Takahashi Aiko, pulled out her phone, trying to show them her confirmation email. But the screen was locked, and her cold fingers fumbled with the passcode. "This is ridiculous," Marcus muttered. "Call Mr. Peterson. He's with the Korean delegation. Then get someone who can. What seems to be the issue here?" The voice cut through the lobby like a blade. Everyone turned. Margaret Hale descended the grand staircase with the measured confidence of someone who owned not just the hotel, but the ground beneath it. CEO of the North Crown Hospitality Group, 58 years old, sharp suit, sharper eyes. Ethan had seen her before, rarely, and always from a distance. She didn't visit the property often, preferring to manage her empire from the corporate office downtown. But when she did appear, staff straightened their spines and double-checked their uniforms. "Miss Hale," Brittany stammered, "we're just having a small communication. I can hear the communication from the mezzanine." Margaret approached the desk, her heels clicking against marble. She glanced at Aiko, then at the confused receptionists. "This is America. We conduct business in English." Aiko bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that seemed to irritate Margaret further. "Ma'am, I need you to speak clearly or I'll have to ask you to step aside." Ethan's hands tightened on his mop handle. He should move, should disappear into the background where he belonged. But something about the moment felt wrong. The casual cruelty in Margaret's voice. The way Aiko stood perfectly still, dignified even in her confusion. "This is unacceptable," Margaret continued, addressing her staff now. "We have standards. If guests cannot communicate their needs properly, they should consider whether this establishment suits them." "I have reservation," Aiko said carefully. "Confirmation number. I don't have time for this." Margaret gestured sharply. "Call security. If she cannot verify her identity and reservation through proper channels, she needs to leave." The lobby had gone quiet. Other guests pretended not to watch, but Ethan saw them glancing over, their faces a mix of discomfort and curiosity. Aiko's expression didn't change. She simply waited, her hands folded in front of her, as if this were an inconvenience she'd experienced many times before. Security approached. Two men in dark blazers, their radios crackling softly. "Ma'am," one of them said to Aiko, his voice gentler than Margaret's, but no less final. "We need you to step outside while we sort this out." Ethan looked at the mop in his hands, at the wet floor, at the invisible boundary he'd drawn around himself 3 years ago. Then he looked at Aiko's face, at the quiet dignity there, at the way she refused to show fear even as she was being escorted out of a lobby she'd paid to enter. The mop handle slipped from his fingers. It hit the marble floor with a sharp, metallic clang that echoed through the silence. Everyone turned. Ethan stepped forward. Margaret Hale had built an empire through control. She controlled her schedule down to 15-minute increments. She controlled her appearance, every hair in place, every accessory chosen for maximum impact. She controlled her emotions with the precision of a surgeon, and she controlled her properties. The North Crown Grand Hotel was her flagship. 5 stars, 200 rooms, a Michelin-starred restaurant, awards lining the walls of her downtown office. So, when she descended those marble stairs that morning and found chaos in her lobby, her first instinct was containment. "What," she said slowly, "is happening here?" The receptionist scrambled to explain. The Japanese woman with the unverifiable reservation. The language barrier. The growing delay. Margaret listened for exactly 30 seconds before cutting them off. "This is America," she said, her voice carrying across the lobby. "We conduct business in English. If she cannot communicate, she cannot stay." It wasn't cruel, it was simply fact. Margaret had built her reputation on efficiency, on standards, on refusing to bend the rules for anyone. She turned to the woman, Takahashi something, and felt nothing but mild irritation. Another complication in an already complicated morning. She had a conference call with investors in 20 minutes. A site inspection in Vancouver tomorrow. No time for this. "Ma'am, I need you to speak clearly, or I'll have to ask you to step aside." The woman bowed. Actually bowed, like something out of a period drama. Margaret's jaw tightened. "This is unacceptable. Call security." She was already turning away, already dismissing the situation as resolved, when she heard it. A clang. Metal on marble. She turned back. A man in a janitor's uniform stood in the center of the lobby. He'd dropped his mop. Now he stood there, hands at his sides, shoulders straight for the first time Margaret had ever noticed. "What do you think you're—" The man walked forward. Not rushed, not hesitant, just forward. He stopped 3 feet from the reception desk, from Aiko, from the security guards. Then he bowed. Deep, formal, the kind of bow that spoke of training, not mimicry, and he began to speak. The language flowed from him like water, each syllable precise and careful. Japanese. Not the rough approximation of a tourist, but something else. Something practiced. Fluent. The lobby went absolutely still. Aiko's eyes widened. She responded, rapid and relieved, her hands moving slightly as she spoke. The janitor, what was his name? Cole. Something like that, listened carefully, then turned to the reception desk. "Her reservation is under Takahashi Aiko," he said in English, his voice quiet but clear. "Confirmation number JK7392. She's here for 3 nights. There's been a system error. Her booking was flagged as pending when it should show confirmed. She's already paid in full through the corporate account of Takahashi Industries." Brittany stared at her computer screen, typing frantically. Yes. Yes. Here it is. Under corporate bookings. "I'm sorry. I didn't. Takahashi Industries?" Marcus whispered. Margaret felt something cold settle in her stomach. Takahashi Industries. The electronics conglomerate. Current revenue. $47 billion annually. She looked at the woman again. At her expensive coat, her quiet confidence. The way she hadn't shown fear because she hadn't needed to. "I'm sure this was simply a misunderstanding," Margaret said, her voice smooth now. "Professional. Miss Takahashi, please accept our apologies for—" The janitor was still standing there, still visible, still disrupting the careful order Margaret had spent decades building. "That will be all," Margaret said sharply, looking at him for the first time. Really looking. "Return to your duties." The man met her eyes, didn't bow, didn't apologize, just looked at her. "Janitors don't speak here," Margaret said, her voice dropping to ice. "Remember your place." She turned on her heel and walked toward the elevator, her mind already calculating damage control. The woman was clearly someone important. The corporate account, the company name. Behind her, she heard Aiko speaking again in Japanese. Heard the janitor respond. Heard the soft sound of laughter, actual laughter in her lobby. Margaret pressed the elevator button harder than necessary. Control. She'd built everything on control, and for just a moment, it had slipped. The mop hit the floor, and Ethan felt 3 years of carefully constructed invisibility shatter with it. He'd practiced being unseen. Practiced moving through spaces without disturbing them. Practiced swallowing words until his throat ached with the weight of things left unsaid. But watching Aiko stand there dignified, patient, disrespected, something in him refused to stay quiet. So he stepped forward. The lobby felt enormous suddenly. Every eye on him, every conversation stopping mid-sentence. He stopped in front of Aiko and bowed. Not the casual nod Americans gave each other, but a proper bow. 15 degrees, 3 seconds. The way his teacher in Kyoto had shown him years ago. Then he spoke. Takahashi-san, moshiwake gozaimasen. Kochira no fubenitsuita fukai owabi moshiagamasu. The words felt strange in his mouth after so long. But they came back. Muscle memory of a different life. Aiko's face transformed. Relief. Gratitude. Something else. Recognition, maybe. She responded quickly, her words tumbling out. She explained the reservation confusion, the corporate booking, the confirmation email that wouldn't load. Her English wasn't bad, she explained, but numbers and spellings confused her, and the receptionist had seemed so irritated. Ethan listened. Then he turned to Brittany. Her reservation is under Takahashi Aiko. Confirmation number JK7392. She's here for 3 nights. Check corporate bookings. Brittany's fingers flew over the keyboard. Yes. Here it is. I'm so sorry, I didn't. It's fine, Ethan said quietly. Then to Aiko. Heia no kagi, o ukeru koto ga dekimasu. Mata mondai ga atara. Oshiete kudasai. She smiled. Actually smiled. Then bowed again, deeper this time. Hontoni arigato gozaimasu. That's when Margaret Hale's voice cut through the air like broken glass. That will be all. Return to your duties. Ethan looked at her. This woman who'd just tried to have a guest removed for the crime of speaking a different language. This woman who ran an international hotel chain but couldn't be bothered with international guests. Janitors don't speak here, Margaret said. Remember your place. The words were meant to hurt, to push him back into invisibility. Instead, they made everything clear. Ethan had spent 3 years remembering his place. Shoulders hunched, eyes down, accepting every small indignity because he needed the paycheck, because Lily needed stability. But what was he teaching her? That people like them should accept disrespect? That survival meant swallowing your dignity? He thought of Sarah. How she'd never backed down from injustice. How she'd taught him that kindness wasn't weakness, and silence could be its own form of cruelty. My place, Ethan said slowly, is helping a guest who needed help. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Your place is cleaning floors. Not interfering with hotel operations. Not speaking out of turn. If you cannot understand that, perhaps you need to find employment elsewhere. The threat hung in the air. Ethan felt his stomach drop. Losing this job would be catastrophic. But something had shifted, and he couldn't unsee it. Daijobu desu ka? Aiko asked quietly. Are you okay? He nodded. Daiobu desu. I'm fine. Margaret's jaw tightened. Security. Escort Miss Takahashi to her room. And someone explained to Mr. Cole how employee conduct works in this establishment. She walked away, her heels clicking against marble like a countdown. Ethan stood there, his heart pounding, as reality crashed back in. He'd just confronted the CEO. He'd just risked everything. Aiko touched his arm gently. Anata no namae wa. Your name? Ethan Cole. She handed him a business card. Formal, embossed, gold lettering. Asterisk, Watashi, ni denwa, shite, kudasai. Tetsudairu kamo shiremasen. Asterisk, call me. I might be able to help. Then security led her toward the elevators, and Ethan was left standing in the center of the lobby, visible for the first time in 3 years, and terrified of what came next. The lounge on the 3rd floor was nearly empty at 11 a.m. Ethan sat in a leather armchair, his janitor's uniform out of place among the expensive furniture. He'd been summoned here by Aiko's assistant, a crisp phone call to Derek, who'd looked at Ethan like he'd grown a second head. The Takahashi guest wants to see you. 3rd floor lounge. Don't mess this up, Cole. Now Ethan waited, his hands folded in his lap, wondering if he was about to be fired by proxy. Aiko arrived carrying 2 cups of tea. Real tea, not the hotel's standard bags, but something she'd brought from her room. The scent filled the small space green tea, high quality, the kind that cost more than Ethan's weekly grocery budget. Dozo. She set 1 cup in front of him. Steam rose between them. Thank you, Ethan said, switching to English. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Aiko sat across from him, her posture formal but her eyes warm. You helped me when no one else would. That deserves acknowledgement. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, snow continued falling, softer now. Your Japanese is excellent, Aiko said finally. Kyoto dialect, if I'm not mistaken. Ethan nodded. I lived there for 2 years, studied linguistics at university, spent time in Gion researching traditional speech patterns. Linguistics. Aiko sipped her tea. And now you clean floors. It wasn't a judgment, just an observation. Life changes, Ethan said simply. Yes, it does. Aiko set down her cup. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. Sarah Cole. We met at a conference in Tokyo 7 years ago. International Education Summit. She gave a presentation on cross-cultural learning environments. Aiko pulled something from her pocket, a photo, slightly worn. She gave me this, said it was her good luck charm. Ethan stared at the small photograph. Sarah, smiling, holding a paper crane. He remembered that day. The conference. How proud she'd been of her presentation. She talked about you, Aiko continued softly, about your work in Kyoto, about how you'd given up a tenure-track position to follow her career. She said you were the best man she'd ever known. Ethan's throat tightened. I was sorry to hear she passed. I wanted to attend the funeral, but I was in Singapore. By the time I learned, Aiko trailed off. I should have reached out. You couldn't have known. Still, Aiko touched the photo gently before handing it back to Ethan. She would be proud of what you did this morning. Standing up? Speaking out? Ethan laughed bitterly. I probably just got myself fired. Perhaps. Or perhaps not. Aiko's expression shifted. Became more businesslike. Takahashi Industries is expanding our North American operations. We're opening a cultural liaison office in the city. We need someone who understands both languages, both cultures, someone who knows how to bridge gaps. Ethan stared at her. It would mean office work, regular hours, a salary with benefits, medical, dental, retirement. Aiko listed them matter-of-factly. You'd be home for dinner, available for school events, whatever a 12-year-old needs from her father. How did you mentioned your daughter when we spoke in the lobby, the way you said it. Aiko smiled. I have 3 children. I know that tone. Ethan looked at the tea, at the photo, at this woman who'd appeared out of the snow like something from a story. I can't just leave. I need this job until you have another one. I understand. Aiko pulled out another card. This one with different information. My assistant's number. Call her tomorrow. We'll arrange an interview. Formal, proper, so you can make an informed decision. Why are you doing this? Because Sarah told me once that we're all responsible for each other. That small kindnesses create ripples. Aiko stood, smoothing her skirt. You showed me kindness this morning, Ethan Cole. Let me return it. She bowed, formal and respectful, then walked toward the elevator. Ethan sat alone in the lounge, holding the photo and the business card, the tea cooling in front of him. Outside, the snow had stopped. Ethan didn't own a smartphone. He had an old flip phone that made calls and sent texts. It was cheaper. It was enough. Lily had a smartphone. She needed it for school, for staying connected, but Ethan had never felt the need, so he didn't see the video until he got home that night. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, kitchen that doubled as dining room, but it was warm, and it was theirs, and Ethan had learned to be grateful for that. Dad, Lily called from her room. Dad, you need to see this. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, her phone extended. Her eyes were wide. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Just... Look. Ethan took the phone, squinting at the screen. The video was filmed from an angle, probably by another guest. It showed the North Crown lobby, the reception desk, a woman in a dark coat, Aiko, security approaching, then Ethan himself stepping forward. The bow. The conversation in Japanese, and Margaret Hale's voice, cutting and clear. Janitors don't speak here. The video had been posted 6 hours ago. It already had 200,000 views. The comments scrolled past. Asterisk. Who films this kind of racism and just posts it? Asterisk. That CEO is done. Asterisk. Asterisk. The way he just bowed and spoke. Perfect Japanese. I'm crying. Asterisk. Asterisk. Takahashi Industries is going to destroy that hotel. Asterisk. Ethan felt sick. Dad, this is good, Lily said, reading his expression. People are on your side. It's not about sides. It's about... Ethan trailed off. About keeping his head down. About not making waves. About surviving. But he'd already made waves. The water was already churning. Lily took her phone back. Some kids at school saw it. They asked if it was you. I said I wasn't sure yet. Smart. But it is you, right? Ethan sat down heavily at the kitchen table. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, Mom would have done the same thing. The words hit harder than anything Margaret had said. Your mom was braver than me. No. Lily sat down across from him. Mom said being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing even when you're terrified. She pushed the phone back toward him. You were terrified this morning, but you did it anyway. Ethan looked at his daughter. 12 years old, too smart, too observant. Dealing with a father who worked himself to exhaustion and a mother who'd been gone for 3 years. I might lose my job, he said quietly. Then you'll find another one. We always figure it out. She said it with such certainty, such faith in him. Ethan thought about Aiko's business card, still in his pocket, about the offer that seemed too good to be true, about the possibility of change. Go finish your homework, he said finally. I need to think. Lily squeezed his shoulder as she passed. Don't think too hard. You're bad at that. She was Sarah's daughter. All right. Ethan sat alone in the kitchen, the apartment quiet except for the radiator hissing in the corner. Outside, the snow had stopped, but the streets were still white, still frozen. His phone, his old basic flip phone, buzzed. A text from Derek. Asterisk. Don't come in tomorrow. HR wants to talk to you. There it was. The inevitable. Ethan closed the phone and stared at nothing. Then he pulled out Aiko's card and set it on the table next to the photo of Sarah. 2 possibilities, 2 futures. Outside, the city began to thaw. Margaret Hale saw the video at 1:30 in the morning. She'd been in bed, reviewing quarterly reports on her tablet, when her phone started vibrating. Text after text, email after email, all with the same link. She watched it twice. Then she made 4 phone calls. By 6 a.m., she had a plan. The key to crisis management, Margaret knew, was controlling the narrative. The video made her look bad, she could admit that, at least to herself. But context mattered. Spin mattered. So she called an emergency meeting with her PR team, her lawyers, and HR. The janitor violated multiple policies, Margaret said, pacing her office. He abandoned his post. He interfered with a situation being handled by trained staff. He created a disruption in the lobby during peak hours. Her PR director, Rachel, looked uncomfortable. The optics are difficult, he helped a guest. That's not typically grounds for. He embarrassed the company. He made us look incompetent. Margaret stopped pacing. More importantly, he violated the chain of command. If every employee decided to freelance their job duties, we'd have chaos. The HR director, Thomas, cleared his throat. We could offer a suspension, a formal warning. No. Margaret's voice was final. Termination. Today. Generous severance to show we're not vindictive. A carefully worded statement about policy violations and professional standards. Miss Hale, with respect, the video has 3 million views now. Takahashi Industries released a statement praising Mr. Cole. If we don't fire him, we look weak. We look like we don't enforce our own policies. Margaret sat down behind her massive desk. Draft the termination letter. Have security escort him out. Do it quickly and quietly. But nothing about the situation would be quiet. At 9 a.m., Ethan received the call. Report to HR immediately. Do not stop at your station. Do not speak to other employees. He knew what it meant. He called Aiko's assistant from the bus, left a voicemail. Then he walked into the North Crown Grand Hotel one last time. The HR office was small and windowless. Thomas sat behind his desk, a folder in front of him. Mr. Cole, thank you for coming. Do I have a choice? Thomas had the grace to look uncomfortable. I'll make this brief. Your employment with North Crown is being terminated, effective immediately. The reason is listed as policy violations and failure to maintain professional boundaries. Professional boundaries. Ethan laughed once, sharp and bitter. I helped a guest communicate. You abandoned your post. You interfered with a situation being handled by management. You created a public spectacle. I treated someone with basic respect. That's not your job, Mr. Cole. Your job is to clean the hotel, to maintain the physical environment, not to engage with guests in managerial situations. Ethan thought about arguing, about pointing out the hypocrisy, about demanding to speak to Margaret herself, but he was tired, bone-deep tired. Fine, I'll need my final paycheck. You'll receive 2 weeks severance. More than generous given the circumstances. Sign here. The paper was already prepared. Legal boilerplate. Release of liability in exchange for severance. Ethan signed. Your personal items can be collected from your locker. Security will escort you. The walk through the hotel felt surreal. Past the lobby where he'd spent 3 years invisible. Past the staff break room where he'd eaten lunch alone. Past co-workers who looked away, unwilling to make eye contact. His locker held almost nothing. A spare shirt, a photo of Lily, his winter coat. Security walked him to the service exit. Not the grand front doors, never those. The side door where staff arrived and left, unseen. Outside, the sun was too bright on the snow. Ethan stood on the sidewalk, his coat pulled tight, his breath visible in the cold air. He pulled out his phone and called the number on Aiko's card. The North Crown board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. Margaret arrived early, her presentation memorized, her arguments prepared. The video was a PR problem, yes, but she'd handled worse. The key was projecting confidence, control. The boardroom was on the 15th floor. Windows overlooking the city. Leather chairs. a table that cost more than most people earned in a year. 7 board members. 5 men, 2 women. Combined net worth, somewhere in the billions. And Aiko Takahashi, sitting at the far end of the table. Margaret stopped in the doorway. "Miss Takahashi, I wasn't aware you'd be joining us. Takahashi Industries owns 12% of North Crown stock." Aiko's voice was pleasant. Neutral. "I thought it prudent to attend, given recent events." Margaret recovered quickly, sat down, pulled up her presentation on the screen. "Let's address the situation directly. Yes, there was an unfortunate incident in one of our properties. A janitor overstepped his role. We've handled it appropriately. He's been terminated with generous severance. We've issued a statement about maintaining professional standards." One of the board members, Harrison, old money, conservative, frowned. "The video has 7 million views. People are calling for boycotts. People are always calling for boycotts. The news cycle moves fast. This will be forgotten in a week. Will it?" Aiko's voice cut through smoothly. "Because I've been speaking with our legal team and our PR consultants and several other partners we work with. The consensus is that North Crown has a significant problem." Margaret's jaw tightened. "With respect, Miss Takahashi, one viral video doesn't constitute a crisis. No, but a pattern does." Aiko pulled out a tablet. "Shall we discuss the discrimination complaint filed by Maria Rodriguez last year? Or the lawsuit settled quietly by David Chen? Or the 17 Yelp reviews mentioning staff rudeness to non-English speakers?" The room went very quiet. "I don't know what you're suggesting," Margaret said, carefully. "I'm suggesting that Ethan Cole's video didn't create a problem. It revealed one that's been festering for years." Aiko looked around the table. North Crown presents itself as an international luxury brand, but its culture is insular, exclusionary, and legally vulnerable. Harrison leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A choice. North Crown can continue as it is, with Margaret at the helm, defending her decisions while watching partnerships dissolve." Aiko's voice remained pleasant, businesslike. "Or it can acknowledge that change is necessary." "You're threatening us," Margaret said flatly. "I'm offering information. What you do with it is your decision." Aiko stood. "But Takahashi Industries will be re-evaluating all partnerships with North Crown. That's 17 hotels, 43 million in annual revenue. We'll be watching very carefully how this situation resolves." She walked toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and you should know Ethan Cole will be starting with Takahashi Industries next week, Director of Cultural Liaison. Salary commensurate with his education and experience. He'll be working directly with our North American operations." The door closed behind her with a soft click. Margaret sat frozen. Around her, the board members began talking at once. 17 hotels. She can't be serious. "We need damage control." Harrison's voice cut through. "Margaret, in your professional opinion, was terminating that janitor worth $43 million? Outside, the storm everyone had been predicting finally arrived. Snow and wind turning the city white. Inside, the temperature had dropped to absolute zero. The statement came at 4 p.m. Lily was the one who showed Ethan, bursting through the apartment door with her phone extended. Dad, look, the North Crown Hotel website. A new press release, asterisk. The North Crown Hospitality Group announces a transition in leadership. CEO Margaret Hale has resigned to pursue other opportunities. We thank her for her years of service and wish her well in her future endeavors. Asterisk. Additionally, North Crown acknowledges that the incident involving former employee Ethan Cole revealed significant gaps in our customer service approach. We apologize to Ms. Aiko Takahashi for her experience. We are implementing immediate staff training on cultural sensitivity and guest relations. Asterisk. Mr. Cole has been offered reinstatement with a formal apology. We respect his decision to pursue opportunities elsewhere. Asterisk. Ethan read it 3 times. You won, Lily said, grinning. Nobody won. She lost her job. She tried to humiliate someone for speaking Japanese in a hotel lobby. She fired you for helping. I know what she did. Ethan set down the phone. But over the next 2 days, more information emerged. Journalists dug into North Crown's history, found the complaints Aiko had mentioned, found patterns. Former employees came forward with stories of discrimination, of being told to keep quiet, of management that prioritized image over integrity. Margaret gave one interview, stiff and defensive, before her lawyer advised silence. The board announced an independent review, and Ethan received 47 calls from media outlets wanting his story. He declined them all. On Thursday, he met with Aiko's team. The interview was professional, thorough, and entirely unnecessary. The job was clearly his if he wanted it. Still, they went through the motions. Credentials, experience, expectations. The salary they offered was more than Ethan had earned in 2 years at North Crown. When can you start? Aiko asked. Monday? She smiled. Monday. That evening, Ethan and Lily walked to the North Crown Grand Hotel. Not inside, just stood on the sidewalk, looking up at the building. Do you regret it? Lily asked. Which part? Stepping forward. Speaking up. Everything that happened after. Ethan thought about it. About 3 years of invisibility. About shoulders hunched and eyes down. About teaching his daughter that survival meant swallowing dignity. No, he said finally. I don't regret it. Snow began falling again, soft and clean, covering the city in white. Good, Lily said. Because Mom wouldn't have. They stood together in the snow, father and daughter, visible and unafraid. Monday morning was clear and cold. Ethan stood in front of the Takahashi Industries building, his suit still stiff from the department store, his briefcase borrowed from a neighbor. He looked like someone playing dress-up, but when he walked through the doors, the receptionist smiled. Mr. Cole, Miss Takahashi is expecting you. 15th floor. The elevator rose smoothly. The building was all glass and steel, modern and efficient. Through the windows, the city spread out below, snow still clinging to rooftops. Aiko met him at the elevator. Ready? Honestly, terrified. She laughed. Good. Terror keeps you sharp. She led him down a hallway lined with offices. Your department is small right now. You, 2 assistants, and an intern. Your job is to build it into something larger. Help our partners understand Japanese business culture. Help our Japanese executives understand American expectations. Bridge the gap. They stopped at a corner office. Windows on 2 sides. A desk. Bookshelves waiting to be filled. It's not a janitor's closet, Aiko said. Ethan stepped inside. The view took his breath away. Thank you, he said quietly. For this. For believing. I didn't give you this job out of kindness, Ethan. I gave it to you because you're qualified. Because Sarah told me 7 years ago that you were brilliant. Because what you did in that lobby showed judgment and courage. Aiko handed him a folder. This is your department budget. This is your hiring authority. This is your phone number and email. Welcome to Takahashi Industries. She left him there, alone in his new office, and Ethan sat down at his desk. He pulled out the photo of Sarah, set it on the corner of the desk where he could see it. We made it, he whispered. The first week was overwhelming. Learning systems, meeting teams, discovering that his linguistics background actually mattered again, that his years in Kyoto had value beyond nostalgia. He hired his first assistant on Wednesday, a recent college graduate who spoke Mandarin and Korean. Brilliant and eager. His second assistant started the following Monday. Older. Experienced. She'd worked for the State Department before retiring. Together, they began building something. At home, Lily noticed the change. Not just the regular hours or the better paycheck. The way her father stood straighter, smiled more, came home energized instead of exhausted. "You're different," she said one evening over dinner. "Different how? You look like you again." Like the dad in old photos with Mom. Ethan felt his throat tighten. "Is that okay?" "It's perfect." 3 weeks after starting at Takahashi Industries, Ethan received an email from Thomas at North Crown HR. "Mr. Cole, asterisk, I wanted to reach out personally. What happened was wrong. I should have pushed back harder. I should have said something. I didn't, and I regret it. Asterisk, asterisk." For what it's worth, Margaret's dismissal led to a complete culture review. "We're implementing changes, real ones. It won't fix the past, but maybe it'll prevent future incidents. Asterisk, asterisk, I hope your new position is everything you deserve. Asterisk, Thomas." Ethan read it twice, then filed it away. Some wounds needed acknowledgement, not forgiveness. On a Saturday in late February, Ethan and Lily returned to the North Crown Grand Hotel, not to make a point, not to gloat. Just because they were meeting Aiko for lunch, and she was staying there during her visit. The lobby looked the same. Marble floors, leather couches, chandelier throwing fractured light. But the staff was different. New training programs, new policies, new leadership that actually seemed to care. A young woman at the reception desk smiled as they entered. "Can I help you?" "We're meeting Miss Takahashi," Ethan said. "Of course. She's in the lounge. I'll let her know you're here." As they waited, Ethan looked around the lobby, saw the spot where he'd stood, invisible, for 3 years. Saw where he'd dropped his mop, where everything had changed. "Dad?" Lily touched his arm. "Yeah," he smiled, just remembering. Aiko appeared, elegant as always, and they went to lunch. They talked about work, about Lily's school, about Aiko's children in Tokyo, about the partnerships Takahashi Industries was building. And as they talked, snow began falling outside, soft and steady, covering the city in clean white. "Do you miss it?" Aiko asked suddenly. The quiet, the invisibility. Ethan thought about it. About 3 years of being unseen. About the safety of silence. "No," he said finally. "I don't. Turns out being visible is better. Even when it's scary." Lily grinned. "Especially when it's scary." They finished lunch and walked outside together. The snow was heavier now, transforming the city into something pristine and new. Ethan and Lily stood on the sidewalk, watching the snow fall. "Not all silence is weakness," Ethan said quietly. "Some people are just waiting to be heard, and when someone finally listens." He trailed off, watching the snow. "Everything changes." Lily slipped her hand into his. "Yeah," she said. "It does." They walked home through the snow, father and daughter, no longer invisible. Behind them, the city continued its transformation. Slow, steady. One small change at a time.